Two scenarios, with Alex Karaban or without Alex Karaban. You're locked on UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Do me a quick favor. See that little button on the bottom of your screen. Click subscribe. Helps our channel grow, our audience grow. And frankly, I truly appreciate all of your support, as does the Locked On Podcast Network. If you're listening in the car or on an audio device, when you finish the show, do me a favor. Shoot me a 5-star review. And finally, a special shout out to my everydayers. Thanks for giving this new UConn content a shot and helping us spread the gospel of UConn hoops. How long can I keep saying new UConn content? Is that like we'll go up until the beginning of the season and then we'll can that intro? But either way, I really appreciate you guys. We're going into our third full month. I couldn't be happier and really excited about the prospects of Locked On UConn going forward. But what's today's show? I apologize for not waiting until we hear the Alex Karaban decision. My family and I have to attend a funeral. So we're putting this out early in the morning, and hopefully we'll obviously all have the news about Alex some point today. And then tomorrow's show will be, again, all about the Alex Karaban decision. And was it a good one? Was it a bad one? Where do we go from here, right? But we wanted to talk today about what's UConn's ceiling with Alex Karaban, what's their ceiling or floor without, and who benefits, right? You know, if he goes, it's a trickle-down effect. So what's UConn's ceiling with Alex Karaban? I believe it's preseason number 1, betting favorites to win the national title. UConn fans have been desperately clamoring for ESPN to cover them. I know that we're not on ESPN a lot now. We're on Fox Sports. It's pretty impossible to ignore a team with a legitimate shot to win a third national title. I know people will say, well, we haven't had a team win a back-to-back since Florida. But that's, I was just out of college last time that happened, 06, 07, a couple years out. We haven't seen something like this since the late, great Bill Walton and his UCLA teams. And they won 6 in a row. So it would be almost impossible, again, if UConn does get Alex Karaban back, to ignore it, especially when you have 3 huge contributors: Alex, Samson, Hassan, 4 talented sophomores, Solo, Jalen, Jaden, Yusuf. They'd be a legit and a top 10 recruiting class that's led by Liam McNeely. Oh, by the way, you add a St. Mary's player, a transfer in Aiden Mahaney, who led them in scoring, and was a huge transfer portal haul. Oh, by the way, we got Terrace Reed from Michigan, who was a top 30 recruit before he played under a terrible Michigan offense. They'd be a legit swagger number 1 team, number 1 seed for the tournament. They'd have an edge as the 2-time national champions going to tough places to play, like, down in Texas when we play in Austin in December. Or a quick ride over to that madhouse in Providence. All that doesn't seem too daunting when you have a calming influence in Alex Karaban. The ceiling for them with Alex is 100% national title, with the floor of Elite 8, Final 4. They maybe don't defend the Big East title or regular season or tournament titles. One would think there'd be a slight drop-off, but we all know Dan Hurley. He's coming for it all. I wouldn't put it past them to, again, win another Big East title, sweep the awards, if you will. But it's just so tough to bet against Dan Hurley in the postseason, especially if Alex makes his decision to come back. So ultimately, if he does, we're the best team in the country. And barring injuries, we will be in the Final 4 going for a three-peat. So what's the floor? Alex makes a decision today. Let's say we're 8:40 my time, Eastern time today. And he comes out around lunchtime and says, I am coming back to UConn. What's the worst they could do? The floor, right? I think it's a Final 4. I think it would make a Final 4 regardless. Maybe they have a tough loss to a team that gets hot, a Kansas, for example. For example, with new arrivals, AJ Storr, Rylan Griffin, Zeke Mayo, to complement Hunter Dickinson and DeJuan Harris and KJ Adams. Maybe it's a team that gave us a slight scare this year in Bama. They landed some pretty solid kids in the portal, and Nate Oates has a pretty intriguing offense that gets them going and running up and down the floor, and maybe they play some defense this year. Who knows? And that's also contingent on their own decision today with Mark Sears coming back, if he comes back. Or maybe it's someone like Baylor who's poised to make a run. The crazy thing is, as I list a bunch of these Big 12 teams, obviously Alabama's in the SEC, but I think with Big 12's 20-game conference schedule and how they're just going to beat each other up, I don't see too many of these teams having enough in the tank to come around in March. So, I mean, you could see 11 teams make the NCAA tournament with the Big 12, and I don't think one of them makes the Final Four. It's just going to be too difficult. But look, I think if UConn brings Alex Karaban back, the sky's the limit. They 100% will be in the mix for a national title. And I think the worst case scenario would be he comes back, they suffer a few injuries, not necessarily saying it's Alex, but it kind of derails that three-peat aspiration. And we trip up. But I think that's the only way. Because when I think about Dan Hurley and his staff, if you get them in this one and done tournament, there's not a staff that I would want more right now. He's the best coach in the country, best staff in the country. And look, we'll talk about what this team will look like playing a little what's the ceiling or what's the floor without the great Alex Karaban. Crossing our fingers that we don't have to worry about it, but we're going to talk about it coming up after this. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. This just came to me. I was thinking about the shirt I'm wearing. If anyone doesn't know this, I am a huge Jaws fan. It's my favorite movie of all time. I bought a few prints that I want to mount in the new office. There will be a new background, probably in a month or so, maybe a little less. So if you're clamoring for the virtual background of UConn, I have something for you guys. We'll be putting this up, this UConn banner behind me, but also we're getting some memorabilia. There's Jaws posters. It's a truly an interesting office setup / studio. So really looking forward to the new spot and excited about the future here with Locked On UConn. But let's play ceiling floor, and I'm stalling because I don't really want to talk about a scenario where we don't have Alex Karaban, but I feel like a lot of people are thinking he's going, and it makes sense. We talked about this yesterday. I said if it was me and I had what he had, his height, his ability, his leadership capabilities, his processing on the floor, his mental acuity when it comes to where everyone needs to be, I'm going too. Even if I'm a second round pick, because I'm going to bet on myself. Hey, Draymond Green was a second-round pick, and I think he signed a $200 million contract. So it's not impossible, guys, especially for people who have great size and in skill sets. I don't think anyone would look at Draymond Green and say, "Man, that's an elite athlete." Draymond Green is smart. He's physical. He's about 40 pounds heavier than Alex, but Alex is going to gain weight and do his thing in the pros. So let's pretend like he's leaving. So if you hear this podcast later in the day and he goes pro, this is what we can expect. I think you can expect a couple things. Number one, a lot of opportunities. Opportunity for people to step their leadership game up. One reason Tristan Newton came back for his 5th year was because NBA scouts told him that they wanted to see him be more of a vocal leader, right? I think if Alex leaves, it creates a chasm of leadership that needs to be filled. So who steps up? Is it Hassan and Samson kind of coming collectively together and saying, listen, we got to get these young kids in line. We have to make sure everyone is in the right spot, so the coach's staff isn't killing us. Will it be one of the talented freshmen? Will it be a kid like Liam McNeely? Will it be Ahmad Noel? Will it be Isaiah Abraham? Can't imagine it would be one of the freshmen. I think freshmen come in and play a role and kind of, see what works and see what doesn't. Although I could see Ahmad maybe doing that, because having talked to his father and just knowing the type of player he is and the type of kid he is, I could see him stepping up and be like, all right, Alex Karaban's gone. Cool. Wish him the best. We love him, but we got to handle our business. So secondly, I believe that the ceiling would be a top 10 finish with this, right? So whoever steps up and creates that leadership, I think it would fall short of us being kind of like a dominant team, a 1 seed-ish, or even 2 seed top 10 team. I hope I'm wrong. But I look at it like maybe a potential top 3, top 4 finish in the Big East. I think Marquette, Creighton, St. John's, and Providence have made significant moves. And it would be a challenge for this young and talented UConn team. Yeah, I think that's where they would be, somewhere in the top 4 or 5 in the Big East without Alex Karaban. But are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down all the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So what's the floor? Really, to me, the floor without Alex is pretty simple. And all that means is if we didn't fill it, I think that's the biggest thing is when we talk about a chasm of leadership, that means a huge hole to fill. And I don't think it's something that you can really talk about. I think they're going to have no problem replacing these numbers. Okay. Because this is not to denigrate Alex and his contributions at UConn, but his numbers weren't astronomical. And part of that is because he put in an amazing team. 13.3 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists. The great stuff is 40% from 3 and almost 90% free throw shooter. But as we know, AK is a lot more than this. Look, you don't go and talk to a Fox Sports writer, a guy we had on the show, Michael Cohen, and call one of your players the brain center. Like, legitimately, it's the craziest nickname I've ever heard a coach call a player. And I've heard a lot of players being called different things, both positive and negative. But to me, that's just like the ultimate compliment. There's a lot of coaches that will, espouse the most wonderful things about players. Oh man, he's such a hard worker. He's this, he's that. But to call someone the brain center, to lose that type of player, is you can't replace him. So I feel like, again, it has to be a collective effort to pick up where Alex Karaban leaves, right? So the floor, unfortunately, if this happens, it would mean that the leadership was not filled, that some of the doubling down that the staff is done with the 4 sophomores, bringing in certain freshmen, didn't work out, and we fell short. I couldn't see this team with all that talent missing the tournament, but I could see them if all of this was to happen, if you had injuries, et cetera, if it all went sideways, bad luck, potential injuries, a couple double downs don't work out. You're an 8 seed, 9 seed, middle of the pack in the Big East. Am I predicting that to happen? Absolutely not. I think, as we've stated many times, myself and guests on this show, you have to trust in Dan Hurley and company that they know what they're doing. And when it comes to roster construction, I think without Alex Karaban, it's got a lot closer to competing for a Big East title, being very talented in a bunch that could get hot late in the season and scare some folks. So I think they'd be a lot closer to the ceiling of UConn without Alex Karaban as a 3 seed, maybe a 2 seed, but that is ready to make some noise in March. I really feel like it's going to be an interesting couple of days. Like, for the rest of today, when we hear from Alex and his team, My question is, how does he do it? Does he have a LeBron-like decision with sitting down with Jim Gray, or is he just going to put out a press release? Are we going to hear from John Fanta or Rothstein or Goodman or whomever, Douster, to kind of break the news? I'm curious who he goes to. Maybe he goes to our guy Jared Kotler, right? From the Connecticut Scoreboard podcast. Coming up, which players benefit if Alex does decide he's leaving for later today? After this. So we're back. So which players benefit from Alex Karaban's decision? I have 3 that I feel like really could benefit from Alex leaving. And I apologize if I'm yawning. Babies were not sleeping properly last night, but that's okay. We're ready to roll. I think the first one that pops in my head is Jaden Ross. Ross is the forgotten wing. He's a 3-level scorer. He's a guy that NBA scouts ask Dan Hurley about. And I don't think Dan is just blustering and saying, because listen, I feel like these guys come to these practices and they go, who's that? I mean, this kid's almost 6'8", lanky, long. All of these guys last season, Jalen Stewart, solo ball, Jaden Ross, had a front row seat to watch the most efficient offense of the past 25 years. So when people say Jaden or Solo aren't as good as we say, or the coaches say, I don't think they're paying attention, because they played on a great team last year that won 37 games and dominated their other way to a title. It's not like we squeaked by. I mean, so when I hear people, like, I get YouTube comments and people will go, oh, Solomon didn't show us enough last year, or I don't know what you can expect out of Jaden Ross. You can expect what the coaches tell you to expect. And what I say about the reason why I say it that way is because we're not in practice. I'm not in practice. You're not. Just because you watched Jaden Ross play a few minutes against New Hampshire earlier in the year and you didn't like his game doesn't mean that he's not a great player. It just means he hasn't had his opportunity to shine at this level. And I think if without an Alex Karaban, that elevates him. Doesn't have to worry about it. If Alex comes back, I think there's already players in front of him. He's got a scratch and claw to get 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes a game. But if he doesn't come back, and I think that's a big possibility, he's in that double digits. Maybe he's getting 10, 12 minutes a game. And maybe has a breakout game where you kind of go, oh, this is what they see, right? Jaden would be in my opinion, the biggest beneficiary because he played the least and has the most to prove. So, I mean, it's kind of, that's just deductive reasoning. The second on the list is Liam McNeely. Liam is a kid who comes from a solid pedigree, McDonald's All-American, and from all the people that I've talked to, probably earns the starting nod if Alex is gone. It may start if he stays with Alex at the 4. So it would almost solidify a spot for the freshman. And I think what people should expect is not the Alex Karaban replacement. I don't want us to think about that, because I don't think that that's fair to Liam to think about replacing a 2-time national champion, a legend at UConn. He just needs to go be Liam McNeely, because that's good enough. He's an absolute monster. And then third, I think you got to go Jalen Stewart, right? If Alex Karaban goes, he's the heir apparent. He already was backing Alex up this year. And we saw how well he did in the Big East title game. He gave us his Ricky Moore moment, hitting those 3 straight threes to kind of keep UConn ascending to that title. He's been dynamite on defense. He got run at the end of the year in most of these games because of his hustle, because of the way he was playing defense, knowing that he wasn't a primary option to be a scorer. That's how you win hearts and minds of the coaching staffs, is by doing the little things, the screenings, the offensive tap outs, the rebounds, the big blocks, some of those highlight blocks he had in the tournament. I think he continues to improve that shooting stroke, and he makes that leap. Lastly, if you've been paying attention to Dan Hurley and company, you know what they're doing with this. If Alex Karaban goes pro today, 2 minutes after I put this podcast out, would be unfortunate, but if he does, I know Dan Hurley and this staff are going to use this as motivation. Just another challenge. One of the first shows that we did, I wouldn't say first, but beginning first month or so, there was a lot of UConn doesn't get respect shows. And if you guys know me, you know that I'm a big Jocko Willink fan, Navy SEAL. And he has that famous quote about how he had a subordinate come to him and say, we have all these problems. And the only thing he would say to him was, good. And so I have a feeling that Dan Hurley listens to that from time to time or has that mindset. I don't know that to be true. Because it's not motivation. It's discipline. Motivation dies. Motivation dies on the vine. Anybody that's out there that's ever worked out and uses motivation to work to move you, I guarantee you run out of motivation because it's the consistency. It's the discipline that gets you through the hard workouts. It's the discipline that gets you through the hard times. So Dan is going to dangle this like a carrot. Who wants that belt? Right? He's a wrestling fan. Who wants to step up and be the man? Like our boy Ric Flair. Woo! That who's going to have that sense of urgency to fill the void, as we've mentioned. And I think that's the mantra of UConn basketball. Hype up videos are great. Does it get you jacked up? Yes. Motivates you. Heck, when I'm done with this show, I'll probably watch that Jocko YouTube clip good as well, just because I think it's awesome. And it does fire me up. But I'll figure out a way to work out today because that's who I am. Not because, I'm using music to pump me up. So I feel like that's the genre of UConn basketball that Dan Hurley, the culture that he's created. And only time will tell who steps up here, because eventually Alex Karaban is going. So whether it's going to be this year or next, you have to fill his spot. So if it's this year, the kids have to grow up early, right? So are we going to have Kara back or Kara gone? That decision looms. But one thing that doesn't loom is Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel for you on YouTube. Now it's also available on the Amazon Fire TV channels app and free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. I was on that show quite a bit when UConn was making their run. I hope that I'm on that show again during the regular season to talk Alex Karaban, All-American. Alex Karaban leading the number one UConn three-peat hopes. But time will tell. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, guys, go Huskies.